Welcome to the FAFSA Leadership Lounge. I am Michelle White, Executive Director of the Florida Association of School Administrators, and we're looking forward to diving into some of these policies that are shaping the work of Florida school leaders.
And I am Jessica Jana Fewith. I'm the lobbyist for FAFSA and several school districts across the state of Florida.
So we're going to start this week with the legislature in Tallahassee for the third interim committee week. And it's looking like a pretty light week in education so far, Jess.
It sure is. We're off to kind of a slow start here with the committee week. So our Senate Ed Approach Committee is not going to be meeting, and there are actually a number of House committees that are not going to be meeting. So it's going to be a little light on policy during this next week, but that's not really terribly uncommon. We do see in education slower starts typically, and then particularly on the House side, we usually see towards the end of the committee weeks or maybe even the beginning of session, the committee chairman will roll out their big package. Usually we call these things proposed committee bills or PCBs. That will usually have a lot of the policy in there. So when it comes to these smaller bills and topics, it's not uncommon that we start kind of at that pace.
Absolutely. And we're going to have a committee week next week as well. So more to come, of course, as we develop. But let's talk about what's happening this week. So the House Pre-K-12 Budget Subcommittee is going to be interesting this week as it focuses on some very important topics relating to releasing second quarter scholarship payments and a presentation on the reimbursement process and the use of the marketplace. So a couple of previous committee weeks, we certainly saw presentations for similar groups that will be coming again this week, which will include the Florida DOE, Step Up for Students, and the AAA Scholarship Foundation. This committee meeting is going to take place on Wednesday from 3:30 to 5.
And I think it's notable that in our this will be the third committee week, we have now had 3 meetings all on the same topic, essentially. I mean, they really looked back at the first meeting, was kind of look back at what happened last year. Then we had the meeting where they kind of said, okay, well, what can we do this year? This is building on that. It's pretty uncommon to have 3 straight meetings on the same topic. I mean, that's just pretty,
with no real policy,
right? No
to
bill,
move forward or to kill.
Right. And so this is definitely, I think, a little out of the norm. The only time we would see this much discussion would be in the budget committee when they're building the budget. That makes, of course, sense. So this shows you how seriously this is being taken by leadership and staff, and they really are looking for a solution. So that should be very interesting. The more we hear the discussion in the committee, we kind of get a better sense of what direction we think they're going. So this next meeting will be just another way to kind of get some more clues about where they're going. On the Senate side, we are actually having a policy meeting. Our Education Pre-K-12 Policy Committee is going to be meeting and talking about high school athletics. And so for all of our members out there who have been members for a long time and follow legislation, you're probably well aware that we have had years where high school athletics have been the star of the show when it came to policy. And so this year, it looks like they're starting out just wanting to give members an idea of what the Florida High School Athletic Association does. So they're going to have Craig Damon, who is the FHSAA Executive Director, come and speak to the committee, talking about the current state of high school sports, how the FHSAA makes the decisions that they make, and what their kind of governance structure, all those things are. I think he's also going to have perhaps some student athletes there also to discuss a little bit, which would be great. And then they're also going to have Dr. Andrew Ramjet from the Florida Coaches Coalition, and he's going to be talking about compensation of coaches. That was a topic that came up last year during the legislative session, with coaches saying we just don't receive enough compensation to coach these teams. And of course, we know that high school athletics is such a huge part of a school's culture. It is a big deal.
And it's not just one sport, right? Like there's so many sports that really feed into our school communities and that come under FHSAA. And, we know, and that all of our administrator members, they certainly understand that we don't pay our coaches near the amount of time and effort that they put into it. So would be interesting. And Senator Simon, the chair of that committee, he really pushed for that last year. So maybe we'll see that again for this year.
Absolutely. And I mean, if there's anyone who understands the importance of high school athletics, I think it would be Senator Simon, having, obviously played high school athletics, college athletics, and then in the NFL.
Yeah.
Obviously a big part of his life. And he knows just how important it is to building the foundation of kids, participating in a sport. And like all things compensation, of course, it really just comes down to money and what's available. And we'll see if the legislature perhaps will appropriate some money this year to bump up the compensation for coaches.
Of course. And so more updates to come on that. The other committee meeting that we're going to watch this week is the House Education and Employment Committee, which will be on Wednesday morning.
Mm-hmm. That is the first time this committee is meeting during in anticipation of the 2026 legislative session. And they are actually going to hear one bill. So instead of doing a topic like most of our other committees have done thus far, they are actually going to hear a bill. And it is House Bill 121, which is nursing education programs by Representative Overdorf. So we'll hear, that's interesting. Of course, our House and Employment Committee does span the entire pre-K 20 space. So it's not just pre-K 12 focused. So that'll be finishing what that discussion is and see if we get any indication on what they're going to look at in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. So also on Wednesday afternoon, we're going to hear from the Senate Appropriations Committee and see what their plan is. Again, it's higher education, so they're going to focus on those post-high school programs, and a significant part of their agenda is about appointing new members to the state college's board of trustees.
Absolutely. And our last meeting that we're waiting breathlessly to see if they're going to have a meeting is the House Education Administration Subcommittee. The way meetings are noticed is they are noticed a week before the meeting after 5 p.m. So we aren't sure what they're going to cover just yet. We haven't gotten that notice as of our recording, but we will know by the time this airs on Monday. It is important to note that this week of committee weeks, the third week, is the halfway point of our interim committee meetings. There are going to be 6 total. And then we have legislative session. And obviously, we do have committee meetings during the session, at least the beginning part of session, but then they will start slowing down. They will not meet as we get towards the latter part of session. So this time when we don't hear bills and we're not having things move becomes very important at the end when there's a backlog of bills in some of these subcommittees and time becomes a factor as to whether or not a bill is going to get through the process completely. So it's just interesting. We always seem to have these slow starts, and of course, it's more than likely strategic because they don't want everything to pass, right? They don't like every bill, and that's the purview of the committee chair is what they want to have heard in their committee and what they don't. So, but things I'm sure will ramp up in the coming weeks.
Yeah. And a great resource on Monday mornings for you will be our news tracker, because we will put out in there what committees are meeting, links to where you can see more about their agenda, and really provide that support for members to get the information if they're looking for it. And of course, we'll give you a wrap up in the next episode. So they are constantly keeping us guessing on when they're going to meet and what the topics are going to be, but we're excited to move forward.
Absolutely. And so as we're thinking about here the state level government, of course, the federal government is also having a huge impact on our day-to-day lives and the world of education. As of this recording, we are in the 30th day of the federal government shutdown, and there are reports that are starting to come out that Senate leaders are beginning to talk to each other. So maybe.
I mean, hopefully we can give some more updates during the week, and it would be fantastic, especially since November 1 was the last day that SNAP benefits ended for many people who need them. And it was a second missed paycheck for a lot of our federal workers that are considered essential and that are doing the work without the pay. So we definitely will keep our members updated.
Yes, and it was November 1st was also the deadline for Head Start funding. And the American Superintendents Association had a really interesting blog post from the National Head Start Association talking about best practices for Head Start programs that are facing challenges during the shutdown. I'm sure our members are hearing in their local communities. I know certainly we hear it here in Tallahassee. The programs that we're going to have to close because they don't have the funding to continue to pay their workers, and what a lot of local communities are trying to do to keep those programs up and running for the people who desperately need them.
Yeah, so a few recommendations for our listeners, and those that are dealing with Head Start specifically. The first is their hope is, try not to lay off staff due to funding concerns. History really has shown that once the shutdown ends, the Head Start programs have received all of their funds and they were able to reimburse for all allowable services delivered during the shutdown. Mm-hmm. So if the program can afford to keep staff on the payroll, they should do everything they can to keep the staff because they will be reimbursed for that.
Absolutely. And for our school districts that are sharing this, perhaps some space with Head Start programs, obviously we want to make sure that space stays available. So when the shutdown ends, the children and the staff can come back immediately and not see a delay there because, that particular area was being used for another purpose.
Yeah. And if the building was built with federal funds or a major renovation was funded by Head Start funds, the federal government has an interest in that building. Mm-hmm. So a school district should not presume that they could remove the Head Start program from the building without knowledge and approval of the government.
Absolutely. And district leaders might want to speak to the Head Start leadership. I think that is certainly in the headlines across our state where you're hearing superintendents and other school leaders talking with the Head Start programs in their communities to see how this is impacting those programs and what, if anything, can be done to help, what the school districts can do.
Yeah. And, we try to make sure that we keep in mind who we're actually serving, which, of course, for every educator, it's about the kids. And in this sense, of course, our Head Start children usually are those that are living below the poverty line. They're unhomed, maybe they're in foster care, and they're also receiving SNAP benefits. So some of our most vulnerable population really are unfortunately at stake here.
Absolutely. And we just know that when school districts and Head Start programs and other community programs all work together with the same goal of, trying to help kids, it's the best outcome that we can have for sure.
Sure. So back in Florida, we are tracking 55 education bills currently. 39 of the bills have already received committee assignments. So it looks like things are going to get more and more ready for the regular session that begins in January. Make sure you check out the bill tracker.
It will be here before we know it. As we know, once you get into the fall, you basically blink your eyes and it's January. So it will be here and things will really start rolling. Of course, our governor obviously plays a large role in influencing what the legislature does, and also, of course, just using his executive presence to push forth the issues that are important to him. And this week, he announced a partnership with Turning Point USA to ensure that high school students in Florida can start campus chapters of that organization. The governor made it very clear that if there were any issues that were to arise with school districts in some way trying to prevent those types of groups from forming, that Florida officials would get involved. So he was making it very clear that, no one is to stand in the way if students or faculty try to organize such a group.
Absolutely. He also announced that the winner of the Ronald Reagan presidential debate at the upcoming Florida Civics and Debate Initiative State Championship will be awarded a $50,000 scholarship. The runner-up will receive a $25,000 scholarship, and the semifinalists will get $15,000, and the quarterfinalists $10,000. So, it's important for sure to keep our kids engaged in what it means to have meaningful debate. Mm-hmm. And our state has definitely prioritized civics education and debate over the last few years. We've seen that in policy changes. So more to come on that, and we can Also reference the FAFSA website. We'll have some great updates there too.
And to kind of wrap it up with some good news, like we did last week, because there is much of that to discuss. USA Today this week released a list of the top 250 vocational schools in the country, and Florida is very well represented. We have 25 schools on the list.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, 10% of all of the schools in the country that made this list are from Florida, and that's just amazing. So very, very big congratulations to all of the schools, which include Lively Technical College here in Tallahassee, First Coast Technical College in St. Augustine, Pinellas Technical College in Pinellas County, and Atlantic Technical College, and Atlantic Technical College, at Coconut Creek. So that is pretty amazing that we have such amazing programs here in the state. And that's another kind of carryover from some of the work that's been done legislatively to try to encourage participation in those programs and growth of those programs. And obviously it's working.
It is. And so other great news to share, FAFSA's Advocate 26 conference is coming up in January. Our main days will be January 27th and 28th. We invite every school leader to come. It is a way to see this policy in action, be able to lend your voice and your experiences so that legislators and their aides can be more informed about what's happening in our schools and our districts. We were able to confirm this week that Senior Chancellor Dr. Paul Burrs will be in attendance to speak with our group, as well as Deputy Chancellor Dr. Josie McDaniel, of course, from the Department of Education. They are a wonderful resource that come every year to talk with our members and really do some Q&A. It is a great opportunity to get direct input from the leaders at the department and have some conversation. So registration is open for this. We encourage you to sign up quickly. The registration is only $50. Amazing for a full 2-day conference. Register on the website. And that is going to be our update for this week. Please continue to share the FAFSA Leadership Lounge, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lounge podcast presented by the Florida Association of School Administrators. Today's podcast was hosted by Michelle White and Jessica Janasiewicz. Podcast was produced by Jeff Willoughby. Original musical recordings by David Higgins. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. New episodes are released each Monday. For show topics, suggestions, questions, or comments, please email communications@fasa.net. We hope you enjoyed the show.